and whatever your beliefs, you are welcome here. If you are new to Cedar Lane and feel comfortable doing so, will you please raise your hand? Welcome, we're glad you're here. All are invited to enjoy coffee and conversation in the lounge after the service. I encourage you to read the announcements printed in your order of celebration. In a moment, I will invite you to greet one another. But first, I would like to introduce our guest minister. During the 25 years that Kathy and I have been Cedar Lane members, one of the things that has impressed me and made me proud to be a Cedar Lane member has been the number of young people who have grown up within our community and who have been inspired to become UU ministers themselves. This morning, we are delighted to welcome home one of our Cedar Lane offspring. The Reverend Clara Petersburger was raised in Cedar Lane and ordained by this congregation in June of 1989 after graduating from the Harvard Divinity School. Among members, friends, and ministers of Cedar Lane, Clara learned how, in the spiritual community, love works. She has been serving at Towson Unitarian Universalist Church since 1999. Clara and her husband, Don Norman, who's with us this morning, live in Towson, Maryland, with 2 cats named Ella Fitzgerald and Louis Armstrong. Clara, welcome home. Now please place your cell phones on worship mode. Our lay pastoral visitors work closely with the ministers to support the pastoral ministry of our congregation. A pastoral visitor will be present by the Joys and Sorrows candle table to my right after the service. Now let us turn and greet our neighbors. Let us center ourselves, inviting our mind, body, and spirit into the space made sacred by our presence. Let this be a time of reflection. Let this be a time of celebration. Let this be a time of worship. Come, let us worship.
Good morning. It is so good to be back at my spiritual home and to see faces that I first met over 40 years ago. And it's also good to have my brother and my two nephews, Nick and Reese, here today. And I hope in 40 years they'll be sitting in a Unitarian Universalist congregation. John Milton wrote about transcendent moments of awe that change forever how we experience life and the world. Thanks to Todd, Michael, and Henry, we just experienced the awe of being transported by music. The theologian St. Augustine of Hippo observed over 1,600 years ago, people travel to wonder at the height of the mountains, at the huge waves of the sea, at the long course of the rivers, at the vast compass of the ocean, at the circular motion of the stars, and yet they pass by themselves without wondering. In honor of wonder about the universe, including ourselves, the symbol of our liberal faith will now be lighted.
As Harvey Lerner comes forward to light our chalice, the symbol of our shared faith, please rise in body and or in spirit and join me in the responsive reading printed on the screen above. I shall read the words in small print, and together let us read the words in bold print. A planet is born, a spark ignites, something completely new comes into being. We give thanks for the ministry and miracle of life. A waterfall descends, a rainbow arcs through the sky, the ocean opens to an endless horizon. We give thanks for the mystery and miracle of beauty. The stars pierce our hearts, peace envelops us, we are blessed. We give thanks for the mystery and miracle of wonder. In the midst of pain, we find our way to hope and restoration. We give thanks for the mystery and miracle of healing. In the midst of fear, we do what is right and speak our truth to faith. We give thanks for the mystery and miracle of courage. In our aloneness, we see someone in greater need and offer ourselves to them. We give thanks for the mystery and miracle of compassion. We gather in community, in relationship, in friendship, and cherish each other.
We give thanks for the mystery and miracle of love.
Lots of moving parts this morning. It's a real pleasure to have Jane here to share with us so many cool ideas and music. So what we're going to do first is have her sing through the lyrics that will be on the screen for We Are Crossing the Water. She'll sing it through, and then we'll sing it back to her, and then we'll go on with the song.
Also, I was just going to share, I attended a Bill Staines concert recently at Masonic Temple in Alexandria. Some of you might be familiar with him, but he's kind of an iconic folk musician. He tours all over the country. I think he told that he drives 65,000 miles a year to sing his music. And what was so cool for me is I didn't know Bill's name. I should have, but I knew his music. I was sitting there. I actually went for the person who opened for him and was amazed. I've been a big fan of Nancy Griffith, but this particular song spoke to me. I was thinking of Claire's message about the power of love and how it carries us across. So this is called Crossing the Waters, and I want you to join us. It goes like this. We are crossing the water our whole life through. We are making a passage that is straight and true. Every heart is a vessel, every dream is a light, shining through the darkness of the blackest night. Okay, why don't you join me? We are crossing the water our whole life through. We are making a passage that is straight and true. Every heart is a vessel, every dream is a light, shining through the darkness of the blackest night. For there is no shallow water, and naught but love to keep us safely from the dangers and the devils of the deep. Yet with every breath within us, we search forevermore to find some peaceful harbor on that far-off shore. We are crossing the water our whole life through. We are making a passage that is straight and true. Every heart is a vessel, every dream is a light, shining through the darkness of the blackest night. For some it is a glory, for some it is a game, for some it is a story filled with emptiness and pain. But as rising winds in chorus, we search for steady ground. There is only that before us, there can be no turning round. We are crossing the water our whole life through. We are making a passage that is straight and true. Every heart is a vessel, every dream is a light, shining through the darkness of the blackest night. For there is no other journey that will ever be the same. No second chance arising that will call you by your name. When the welling waves wash o'er you and the stormy winds they drive, give your heart a song, sing it loud and strong, keep your dreams alive. We are crossing the water our whole life through. We are making a passage that is straight and true. Every heart is a vessel, Every dream is a light shining through the darkness of the blackest night.
Everyone, we are crossing the water our whole life through. We are making a passage that is straight and true. Every heart is a vessel. Every dream is a light
shining through the darkness of the blackest night.
Thank you, Jane, Henry, and to our drummer. Your voices give us our hearts a song. John Updike wrote about how a flock of starlings, hundreds of starlings flying together, awakened him at a deeper level and led him to feel his heart soar. In his poem, The Great Scarf of Birds, John Updike wrote, "Playing golf on Cape Ann in October, I saw something to remember, as if out of the Bible or science fiction, a cloud appeared, a cloud of dots like iron filings, which a magnet underneath the paper undulates. It dartingly darkened in spots, paled, pulsed, compressed, distended, yet held an identity firm, a flock of starlings, as much one thing as a rock. One will moved above the trees, the liquid and hesitant drift, lifting in a casual billow, the flock ascended as a lady's scarf, transparent of gray, might be twitched by one corner, drawn upward, and then decided against, negligently tossed toward a chair. The southward cloud withdrew into the air. Long had it been since my heart had been lifted as it was by the lifting of that great scarf." Another poet, Barbara Crooker, had a similar experience encountering a flock of starlings. She wrote, "Cold morning, November, taking a walk, when suddenly up ahead the trees unleave and thousands of starlings lift off an immense river of noise. They braid and unbraid themselves over my head. The gray silk sky embroidered with black kisses, the whoosh of their wings, their chattering clatter, patterns broken, formed, reformed, a scarf of ragged ribbons. Dumbstruck, mouth open, I say, holy, and I say, moly. And then they're gone. So what is this experience like? Liberty Smith was a student making a short film for graduation, and she and her friend Sophie Windsor-Clive drove from England to Ireland. And during a break, they set out in a canoe on an adventure. They were trying to reach an island with a ruined church on it. They didn't find the island. Instead, in their own words, birds started filling the sky to the horizon. Then they started to gather, rising and falling, each one catching on to the same poem until they were all one great crescendo. Holy moly. Let's see the video.
Right, let's get to that island then.
I can see an animal.
Where?
I can see three. I can see something flying low. I reckon it's like a coot or something. And two swans. Look up!
Oh, wow.
They're over there. Oh, I mesmerised amazing shapes.
When Sophie Windsor-Clive basically drops her paddle, stares at the camera wordlessly, and then laughs. Did she laugh from the thrill of being overwhelmed numerically by the starlings, or from the strangeness of watching the well-choreographed flight of the starlings, which she knew was not choreographed? Or from being mesmerized by the unexpected flight of the starlings, or out of sheer joy as she assimilated what she had just experienced? The poet Julie Staub saw a flock of birds in flight and wrote, "The whole flock taking a long, wide turn, as if of one body, of one mind. How do they do that? We live and move and have our being here in this curving and soaring world, so that when every now and then mercy and tenderness triumph in our lives, and when even more rarely we manage to unite and move together toward a common good, we can think to ourselves, ah, yes, this is how it's meant to be. Ah, yes, this is how it's meant to be." Let us sing of such moments of awe. Hymn number 83, Winds Be Still. Please rise in body or spirit to sing.
may join our songs in new sounds that become full symphony.
We gather, as we always gather, in sacred space, a place set aside as a sanctuary amid the many challenges of life, a center from which we may gather strength to face these challenges with courage and grace, faith and love. In this time of reflection, we lift up those in our community who are living through significant passages, the small and extraordinary milestones of life. We pause to be present to our spiritual companions and to the concerns of our own hearts. May all who gather here be held in the embrace of this community of care. Our thoughts and prayers go out to the more than 100 of our neighbors who were victims of the apartment building explosion in Silver Spring on Thursday. At least 3 were killed and more than 30 injured, but the search continues. Community support has been swift and generous. A dozen adults, teens, and children from Cedar Lane helped distribute emergency necessities to the victims on Friday. However, more will be needed, especially cash contributions. To find out how you may help, please get in touch with Archine Turner, Cedar Lane's community minister. Healing wishes are with Lee McNair, who came home from Sibley Hospital on Friday, where she underwent hip and replacement surgery and rehab. She's doing well. She welcomes phone calls and could use help with vegan meals. Please call beforehand if you'd like to help. For these friends of ours and for all the joys and sorrows that remain unspoken in our hearts, let us turn to the peace and solace of meditation, followed by silence and song. During the silence, anyone acknowledging recent loss or an anniversary of a loss is invited to stand and remain standing until the music begins.
So let us continue in the spirit of prayer with a spoken meditation, the poem Morning Song by Dorian Lowe. This morning begins almost purely, coffee enveloped in cream, those clouds that bloom up like madness in a cup. And I take the first swallow before the color changes, taste the bitterness and the faint sweet behind it, steam rubbing my nose, an animal nuzzle, and the sharp, nearly painful heat at the back of my tongue, the liquid unraveling down the raw tunnel of my throat. And I feel my body fully, vessel of desire, my stomach a pond of want and warmth, utterly human, divine, and awake. And I can hear each bird's separate song, the chirp and scream, the sip, 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 the dwindle and uplift yearning, the soup's on, let up, let it go, of each individual voice. And I know I am here in this widening light, as we all are with them, even the most damaged among us, or lonely, or nearly dead. And that for each of us, there is some small sound, like an unseen bird, or a red bike grinding along the gravel path, that could wake us and take us home. This morning, I think I'm prepared for the final diminishment, with something like a waking, ready awe. My complaints folded and put away in a drawer like needlework unfinished, intricate woven roads that go nowhere or disappear in the distance. Rough wanderings that have brought me here to this sleep-repaired morning, these singing trees, and into my own listening body. So in moments of silence, let us be present in our own listening bodies. Let us also be present to those grieving a loss or commemorating the anniversary of a loss, who are invited to stand to feel the support of this spiritual community of memory, of hope, and of love. Comfort those who mourn, comfort those in need. Hymn number 1002, verses 1, 2, and 4. So a decade ago, when Paul Piff said that he wanted to study the psychology of awe, his mentor cautioned, "Good luck." While he and other researchers suspected that awe has an impact on human behavior, and were well aware of the attention that theologians and philosophers have given to the subject, quote, "It's a hard thing to stick in a test tube," unquote, he said. But in May of 2015, Paul Piff and his colleague Dr. Keltner published an editorial about their research in the New York Times entitled, "Why Do We Experience Awe?" Our reading is an excerpt from this article. Here's a curious fact about goosebumps. In many non-human mammals, goosebumps, that physiological reaction in which the muscles surrounding the hair follicles contract, occur when individuals, along with other members of their species, face a threat. We humans, by contrast, can get goosebumps when we experience awe, that often positive feeling of being in the presence of something vast that transcends our understanding of the world. So why do humans experience awe? Years ago, one of us, Professor Keltner, argued, along with the psychologist Jonathan Haidt, that awe is the ultimate collective emotion, for it motivates people to do things that enhance the greater good. Through many activities that give us goosebumps, collective rituals, celebration, music and dance, religious gatherings, and even worship, awe might help shift our focus from our narrow self-interest to the interests of the group to which we belong. Now, recent research of ours provides strong empirical support for this claim. We found that awe helps bind us to others, motivating us to act in collaborative ways that enable strong groups and cohesive communities. Some of this research was conducted on the campus of the University of California, Berkeley, which has a spectacular grove of Tasmanian blue gum eucalyptus trees, some with heights exceeding 200 feet, a potent source of everyday awe for anyone who walks by. So we took participants there and had them either look up into the trees or look at the facade of a nearby science building for 1 minute. And then a minor accident occurred, actually a planned part of the experiment. A person stumbled and dropped a handful of pens. Participants who had spent the minute looking up at the tall trees, not long, but long enough we found to be filled with awe, picked up more pens to help the other person. Awesome! In still other studies, we have sought to understand why awe arouses altruism of different kinds. One answer is that awe imbues people with a different sense of themselves, one that is a smaller, more humble, a part of something larger. Our research finds that even brief experiences of awe amid beautiful tall trees leads people to feel less narcissistic and entitled, and more attuned to the common humanity people share with one another. We suggest that people insist on experiencing more everyday awe, to actively seek out what gives them goosebumps, be it looking at trees, night skies, patterns of wind, or the quotidian nobility of others. The teenager who gives up his seat on public transportation, the young child who explores the world in a state of wonder, the person who presses on against all odds. All of us will be better off for it. Paul Piff and Dr. Keltner on awe. To inspire our own feelings of awe, Jane Moore wrote a song for today's worship service about a person who pressed on against all odds.
I just wanted to acknowledge, Henry had sent me an email about perhaps playing at service. today, and then he had mentioned about Claire and sort of the shock and awe of love. And I had recently attended the Rehoboth Women's Festival this winter and was very much touched by the documentary film Letter to Anita. And some of you might remember the singer Anita Bryant and her sort of infamous anti-gay campaign of the late 1970s. And the Letter to Anita tells the story of Ronnie Sandlow. She was a married mother of two who came out as a lesbian and divorced her husband, losing custody of her children as a result. And that injustice actually propelled Ronnie into a life of LGBT activism. And so it spoke to me and about the tremendous power. She overcame a lot of odds and in terms of authenticity and forgiveness. And I've been honored to actually be in contact with Ronnie, and I've shared my song with her, and she sent the documentary movie for us to view after service today. So I'm hoping some of you can stick around because it's very inspirational. And she also sent me a few of her books for anyone who's interested in learning more about her powerful story. And I'm also happy to have Henry and Chris helping me out today. Thank
That
you.
movie is going to be shown in the Chalice
In the Chalice House,
Right.
right after service. And I just want to put a shout out too. I have some really good friends that made a special effort to get here, and it means a lot to me. Thanks, you guys, for being here.
In 1947, I was born in Miami-Dade County. Back then it was hard to follow your heart. I only did what was expected of me. I surrendered and married a man, had 2 children I dearly loved. I followed all of society's rules, but it wasn't enough. My name is Ronnie Sandlow, and I choose love this day. Despite the pain I went through, having my children taken away. A Florida citrus beauty queen, you burst on the scene. You led the evangelical crusade to save the children from the gays. The Dade County ordinance got changed, but no more could I live a lie. My children were taken, poisoned with fear, while I could only stand by. My name is Ronnie Sandlow, and I choose love this day. Despite the pain I went through, having my rights taken away. Job after job was taken away because I refused to hide. Times got tough, but I found my way, fighting AIDS, working for equal rights. Now my children are back in my life. Love triumphed over tears. I wonder if you think back on that time and what was lost during all of those years. My name is Ronnie Sandlow, and I choose love this day. Despite the pain I went through, having my rights taken away. Maybe you got swept into the fury lost your compass, playing God, preaching morality. To accept and to forgive is how we truly heal. Letting go of prejudice and hate, allowing our hearts to reveal. My name is Ronnie Sandlow, and I choose love this day. And yes, Anita, I forgive you, despite my children being taken away. My name is Ronnie Sandlow, and I choose love this day. And yes, Anita, I forgive you, despite my children being taken away.
Thank you so much, Jane, for your song about the awe of acceptance, forgiveness, and love. And thank you for arranging for us to learn more about Ronnie Sandlow and her letter to Anita Bryant after worship. So on the evening of July 30th, my husband Don and I headed out for a walk with my parents. It was our last night in the Highlands of Scotland. I don't remember what we were discussing, but as we turned a corner, we were greeted by an image similar to the one on the cover of your order of service, a magnificent double rainbow. And the one in front of us appeared to be springing out of the North Sea. It was huge, surprising, breathtaking, awesome. I don't remember any of us exclaiming, "Holy moly!" But I do remember exclamations of, "Wow!" and "Look at that!" And because I'm a Unitarian Universalist minister, when confronted with a double rainbow arcing out of the North Sea, I was reminded of the story of Moses and the burning bush. You remember the story. Moses was minding his own business, tending his flock of sheep, when near the mountain of God, he saw flames of fire from within a bush. Moses saw that though the bush was on fire, it did not burn up. So he went to investigate. And as he got closer, he heard his name being called, "Moses, Moses." "Do not come any closer," God said. "Take off your sandals, for the place where you are standing is holy ground." So the night before we left the Highlands of Scotland, that double rainbow invoked the feeling that we were standing on holy ground. In fact, a couple came running up behind the four of us, waved past us, and stopped further down the road in order to take a photo of the rainbow being reflected in the North Sea. From a distance, the couple appeared to be smiling. However, as the story of Moses unfolds, Moses does not smile. Moses does not laugh, as did Sophie Windsor-Clive in response to the murmuration of starlings. Instead, Moses hides his face in fear. This points to the original religious meaning of the word awe. The Old Norse word agi is the root of our word for awe and translates to fright or terror. But this is not typical fear. It has more to do with humility and reverence. The German theologian Rudolf Otto wrote about how encounters with the Mysterium Tremendum entail the perception of being in the presence of something uncanny, overpowering, and vibrantly alive. And this encounter prompts us to respond with astonishment. This is what Sophie Windsor-Clive exemplified in the video Murmuration when, after the flock of starlings departed, she stared at the camera and laughed. I imagine that if the Hebrew people had been filmed with Moses after crossing the Red Sea and getting to the other side, they too would have stared into the camera and with astonishment and laughed. Now, I didn't hear my name being called from that double rainbow, and I've never experienced running with a community through a wall of water to my left and a wall of water to my right toward liberation with an army that wants to continue to enslave me in fast pursuit behind me. But I had the experience in 1981 of awakening in mid-December from a coma caused by a head injury to a bouquet of daffodils, tulips, irises, and roses. That bouquet of spring flowers in December was vibrantly alive. And I remember thinking, if I had died in that accident, I would not have seen this beautiful bouquet. I studied each one of the spring flowers in that bouquet in mid-December. I smelled the flowers, I touched them, and I felt a deep and wordless union with those flowers. For me, that bouquet was an encounter with something that I had no part in creating, that filled me with gratitude for being alive. Almost a millennia after the story of Moses in ancient Greece, Homer had the great warrior Achilles say, "I'll tell you a secret, something they don't teach you in your temple. The gods envy us. They envy us because we're mortal, because any moment might be our last. Everything is more beautiful because we're doomed." And Achilles concluded, "You will never be lovelier than you are right now. We will never be here again." That was how Homer imagined Achilles found a way to live with consciousness of human mortality. Now, I don't think all experiences of awe lead us to say or even conclude everything is more beautiful because we're doomed. Right? Certainly, when I think back to childhood experiences of awe, looking at lighted ships crossing Lake Huron at night, tasting my first homegrown tomato with my grandmother in our backyard, holding a 2-week-old baby, standing in this podium, Christmas Eve of 1973, delivering a passage from the Gospel of Luke at the invitation of Betty Anastas, looking at the faces of members of this congregation, I wasn't thinking about anyone being doomed. But I did understand even then that the experiences that filled me with wonder and awe were unique and unrepeatable, and that I must remember this moment. So I invite you to think about transcendent moments of awe that you've experienced. And by transcendent, I don't mean that you necessarily heard the voice of God calling to you from a burning bush that was not consumed, but rather that you felt unity, joy, peace with all that is, and a loss of a sense of time, place, and differences. Even if we have not visited Yosemite, given that this congregation chose to build its religious home in the woods, I imagine that we can resonate with John Muir, founder of the Sierra Club. On his first visit to Yosemite, John Muir wrote, "The whole landscape was glowing like a human face in a glory of enthusiasm. The mountains, the trees, the air were infused, joyful, wonderful, enchanting, banishing weariness and a sense of time." Moments of awe transcend a sense of time as well as weariness and boredom. They come not only from encounters with the natural world, but also with human creativity, listening to music, watching a play or movie, painting, writing, dancing, cooking. They come, as we heard in Jane's song about Ronnie Sonlo, through human courage and service. They come through those experiences that cultivate our sense of wonder, broaden our minds, open our hearts, and give us goosebumps. Such experiences are vital to a spiritual life because they connect us to the whole of which we are a part. As we heard in our reading, and as religion has known for millennia, moments of awe motivate us humans to do things that enhance the greater good. Just over a decade ago, David Foster Wallace gave a commencement address to Kenyon College entitled, "This is Water." For those of you who did not see or hear it, it began with the story of two young fish swimming along, who happened to meet an older fish swimming the other way, who nods at them and says, "Morning, boys, how's the water?" And the two young fish swim for a bit, and then eventually one of them looks over at the other and asks, "What the heck is water?" David Foster Wallace advised graduates not to experience the boring, frustrated, crowding parts of adult life, operating on the automatic unconscious belief that I am the center of the world and that my immediate needs and feelings are what should determine the world's priorities. Although he didn't use Milton's phrase, transcendent moments of awe, he did use two other words that begin with an A. David Foster Wallace told people to choose to be aware, to give their attention to caring about other people and sacrificing for them over and over every day. As we heard in our readings and meditation and in Jane's song for Ronnie and Anita, this is what transcendent moments of awe do for us. As a result of feeling less self-important, we become more open-minded, more open-hearted, more likely to serve the common good. So, what is a recent memory of yours, like John Updike's memory of the scarf of starlings that lifted your heart? How often do you find yourself like Barbara Crooker exclaiming, "Holy moly"? When did you last see someone like Sophie Windsor-Clive, astonished into wordlessness, followed by a chuckle? When do you last remember hearing, like Dorianne Lowe, bird songs that led you to fold your complaints and put them away in a drawer? When do you, like Ronnie, last remember choosing love and forgiveness over fear and hate? And when were you last aware, in the words of David Foster Wallace, what is so real and essential, so hidden in plain sight all around you, that you had to keep reminding yourself over and over, this is water? When did you last feel goosebumps? And what did these feelings lead you to do? In affirmation of our answers, Let us rise in body or spirit and join in singing hymn number 1024. You gotta do when the Spirit says do.
I would like to say that I have experienced awe this morning several times. Firstly, at 8:10, when Steve Jones answered my phone call and said, "Sure, I'll come in and play this morning." Unfortunately, that was because Jasmine Lee took a fall last night, bumped her head, and couldn't come in this morning. So I'd ask you to hold her in your thoughts. Also, I'm in awe of Jane that she wrote that song, and we heard it this morning, and I'm in awe and have goosebumps at the prospect of playing music with my son this morning and my good friend Todd. So thank you very much. So we're going to ask Steve to begin a little vamp here, and I'm hoping you can put those books down and just groove with this song. So Steve, go ahead and give us a vamp if you would. When the Spirit says do, you've got to do when the Spirit says do. You got to do when the Spirit says do. When the Spirit says do, you got to do. Lord, you got to do when the Spirit says do. 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 Dance, you got to dance with the Spirit says. Come on, let's see you move. You got to dance with the Spirit says do. You got to laugh when the Spirit says, woo, woo, woo. Shout when the Spirit says shout. When you shout when the Spirit says shout. When the Spirit says shout, you got to shout. You got to shout. When the Spirit says shout.
In that spirit, it's time for the offertory. The offering is an invitation to demonstrate willingly a commitment to the mission and ministry of our congregation and to the common values expressed in Unitarian Universalist principles. Our offering reminds us that our congregation belongs to us, to each of us, as well as the whole of us. It is an extension of our gratitude for our spiritual home, where we are invited to be who we are, as we are, and to live lives of joy, hope, integrity, and service. The ushers will now come forward to receive the offering. Through the work of our hands and the work of our lives, our love is made real. May we be blessed by all the gifts that we bring and share to make this a beloved community. You are invited to rise in body or in spirit for the closing words. And as an affirmation that we all experience transcendent moments of awe and see the holy in one another with awe, you are invited to join hands with those around you or clasp your own hands to your heart.
Denise Levertov writes, as swimmers dare to lie face to the sky and water bears them up, as hawks rest upon air and air sustains them, so would I learn to attain free fall and float into Creator's Spirit's deep embrace, knowing no effort earns that all-surrounding grace. So may it be for us all. Please be seated for our postlude before going in peace and love to cultivate awe.